Hello. In this video, I'm going to talk you through a IELTS Task 1 line graph. I'm going to show you how you can analyze the data in the graph. I'm going to show you how I would answer this question, and then I'm going to show you the structure that I use. So this is quite a simple line graph, and I chose a simple one deliberately because I really want to focus on the structure of a task 1 essay, because the structure can always be the same regardless of what kind of graphic they give you. Excuse me. Now, a really big problem that many IELTS candidates have is that they're not sure how to understand the information on the chart, and they're not quite sure how to interpret the data. So the first thing we're going to do is look at this graph, and I'm going to show you what kind of things you really need to be looking for when you're checking out these graphs. So, things that you really need to be aware of are you need to find all the high points, all the low points, all the trends, and all the exceptions to those trends. And those are the four things that you really need to focus on when you are beginning to analyze any kind of data for IELTS Task 1. So if we look at this graph, we can see that we've got three lines, and the three lines represent three countries: the USA, which is the dotty line, Canada, which is the narrow line, and Mexico, which is the thick line. And this data is talking about internet users as a percentage of the population. So in other words, how many people in these countries use the internet. Now, if we look for the highs first of all, we can see that the high points are all at the end of the graph. And we can also see that Canada is the highest, and Mexico's high is the lowest. The low points are all at the beginning of the graph. And again, we can see that the USA is top and Mexico is at the bottom. Now, the trend in this graph is all upwards. So every single country is showing an upward trend. There are no exceptions on this graph. Now, you don't have to write about every single point on the IELTS data. They only want you to write about the main points. So let's have a look and see what I've done. Alright, so here's my Task 1 essay down here. You'll see I've got three clear paragraphs, and you should notice that the paragraphs are more or less the same length. And I'm going to suggest that you stop this video now and take your time to read through the essay. When you're finished doing that, you can press play and we'll have a look at the structure. Alright, so as I said, there are three paragraphs in a Task 1 essay. The first paragraph is kind of an introduction, and then there are two main body paragraphs. There is no conclusion in Task 1. You don't need to have a concluding paragraph. Each of these paragraphs has got three sentences. So they are all the same length, and that means, of course, that you've got a total of 9 sentences in your Task 1 essay. So the first sentence is the paraphrase of the IELTS question, and you must have a paraphrase of the IELTS question. You cannot have a Task 1 essay without a paraphrase. So that's my paraphrase right there. And the paraphrase really is reframing the given information up here. Okay, so easy ways to do that are to change the verb. So we've got give information about instead of shows. Here they've got proportion of internet users, I've got number of internet users, and I've specified the country. The next thing that you must have is your overview. If you do not have an overview, you will not get higher than band 5 for task achievement. So it's really important to have this. You can put your overview at the end if you want. It doesn't have to be here, but I always teach people to put it here so that they don't forget, and also because I really like this 3, 3, 3. It's easy to remember. So the overview, I always start my overview with this word, overall. Now you don't have to, but it's a good way to start, and it makes it clear for the examiner what you're going to write about. And then it's 2 sentences in the overview. That's the first one, and here's the second. And the first sentence is a complex sentence, and I always put a complex sentence here because it's a really good way to boost up my grammar score. So if we now look at the main body paragraphs, when you've got a line graph, the easiest way to do it is simply divide it in half. So this paragraph talks about the first half of the line graph, this paragraph talks about the second half of the line graph. So I have literally split my graph in half, and that's how I organised my essay. And then it's super easy to write. There's 173 words in this essay. That is enough. So the minimum is 150. If you can write about 170, that's fine. You don't need more than that. And all the way through these main body paragraphs, I am comparing the information. This is so important to do. Sometimes people just describe the data, and they really want you to show that you can compare stuff. Okay? So all of these phrases are really good ways of comparing information. And of course, there's all the IELTS vocabulary that you need for this when you're talking about percentages, or you're talking about rising and falling, all that kind of stuff you really need to master to do well on this task. So I hope that helps. 3 sentences, 3 sentences, 3 sentences, paraphrase, overview, and then just describe the information and compare the data.